The colony of New Haven sat on a green moon at the edge of human space. It was a quiet place. Farmers grew wheat under 3 suns. Children played in the streets. Old men sat outside shops and talked about the weather. Nobody there thought about war. War was something that happened far away, in old stories their grandparents told. New Haven had been settled 40 years ago. It was one of the newest human colonies, built after the second expansion. The soil was rich. The air was clean. Ships came and went every week, carrying grain, metal, and cloth to other worlds. Most people who lived there had never seen a warship in their life. They had seen cargo ships, though. Big, slow, boxy vessels that carried goods from one star to another. Everyone knew the cargo ships. Everyone trusted them. What nobody in New Haven knew was that some of those cargo ships were not what they seemed. Administrator Elena Reyes ran the colony from a small office in the Capitol building. She was 52 years old, with gray hair tied back and tired eyes that had seen 20 years of colony problems. Water shortages, crop failures, small disputes between neighbors. She liked her job. It was simple work, most days. She kept the lights on and the people fed. That was enough for her. On the morning everything changed. Elena was drinking her coffee and reading reports about the grain harvest. It was going to be a good year. The wheat fields to the north were full and golden. She smiled at the numbers on her screen. Then her comm device buzzed. "Administrator Reyes," said the voice of Corporal Ivan Petrov, the head of the small colony watch station. His voice sounded strange. Tight, scared. "We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" Elena asked, setting down her coffee. "Ships. Big ships. Coming out of the dark, past the outer marker. They are not ours." Elena felt her stomach drop. "How many?" 12, maybe more. Our scanners are having trouble reading them clearly. They are not broadcasting any signal. No trade codes, no greeting beacon, nothing." Elena stood up so fast her chair fell backward. "Sound the alarm. Get everyone into the shelters." Now. New Haven had shelters, of course. Every colony did. They were meant for storms, not invasions. Nobody had ever used them for anything but the yearly drill, when children giggled as they filed into the underground rooms, and old folks complained about the dust. This time, there was no giggling. The alarm rang out across the colony, a long, low sound that made birds fly up from the fields in fright. People stopped what they were doing. Farmers dropped their tools. Shopkeepers locked their doors. Mothers ran into the streets calling for their children. Within minutes, the town square was full of frightened people, all moving toward the shelter entrances, all asking the same question. What's happening? What's out there? Nobody had an answer yet, not even Elena. She rushed to the watch station, a small building on a hill above the town, with old sensor equipment that had not been updated in 10 years. Corporal Petrov was there, along with 2 other watchmen, staring at their screens with wide eyes. "Show me," Elena said. Petrov turned a screen toward her. On it, 12 large shapes moved slowly against the black of space. They were massive, far bigger than any trade ship New Haven had ever seen. Their hulls were dark, almost black, with strange ridges and spines along the sides that looked less like cargo holds and more like teeth. "They're not human," Petrov said quietly. "That's for certain." "Do we have any way to contact them?" Elena asked. "We tried. No response. We sent the standard greeting on every channel we have. Nothing back." Elena stared at the screen. Her hands were shaking, but her voice stayed steady, the way it always did when the colony needed her to be strong. "Keep trying. And get a message out. Send it to the trade relay station. Tell them New Haven may be under threat. Ask for help." "Already did," Petrov said. "But Administrator, the relay is 3 days away at best speed. Even if they send help right now, it won't get here in time." Elena closed her eyes for a moment. 3 days. New Haven had no warships. No weapons beyond a few old rifles kept for wildlife control. If those ships out there meant harm, the colony had almost nothing to stop them. Almost nothing. There was one thing Elena knew that most of the colonists did not. Something she had been told when she first took the job of administrator. Something she had never spoken about to anyone, not even her own family. It was a secret that had been passed down to every colony administrator since the founding of New Haven, sealed in a file she was told to open only in the worst emergency. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small data chip. Her hands trembled as she inserted it into the console. A message appeared on the screen. It was old, written many years ago, in plain and simple words. If you are reading this, New Haven is in danger from an outside threat. Do not panic. Do not evacuate the cargo fleet. Send the following signal on this frequency, and the fleet will respond. Below the words was a string of numbers and a strange code. Elena stared at it. She thought of the cargo ships docked at New Haven's small port, 6 of them, run by a company called Atlas Trading. She had always thought they were ordinary, slow, boring. The captains kept to themselves, rarely came to town meetings, rarely spoke about where they had been before New Haven. She had never questioned it. Cargo captains were often quiet people. Now she wondered if there was more to them than she had ever guessed. Petrov, she said. Send this signal, right now. Petrov looked at the strange code with confusion, but did as he was told. He typed the numbers into the console and sent them out on the frequency listed in the file. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, down at the port, something changed. Captain Marcus Webb had been sitting in the small captain's mess of his ship, the Iron Harvest, eating a plain lunch of bread and stew, when the alert came through his private earpiece. It was not the colony's alarm. It was a different sound entirely, one only he and 5 other people on New Haven could hear. A sound he had trained for but never once expected to hear for real. He set down his spoon. Report, he said quietly into the earpiece. Confirmed signal, Captain, came the voice of his second-in-command, Commander Sarah Chen, from the bridge above. The activation code. It's real. Someone at the colony administration just triggered it. Marcus Webb had been a soldier once, a long time ago, before New Haven, before the Iron Harvest, before any of this quiet colony life. He had fought in the last war, the one humanity barely won, the one that taught the human fleet a hard lesson. Never let the enemy know your full strength until it is too late for them to use it against you. After that war, a new plan had been made. Colonies on the edge of human space, the ones most likely to be attacked first, would be given quiet protection. Not obvious warships sitting in orbit, which could be seen and avoided or destroyed before they were ready. Instead, disguised ships. Ships that looked like slow, harmless cargo vessels, but carried real weapons hidden beneath false hulls, waiting for the day they were needed. 6 of those ships sat in New Haven's small port right now, disguised as the Atlas Trading Fleet. Marcus Webb had commanded the Iron Harvest for 11 years, wearing the mask of a boring cargo captain, delivering grain and cloth, drinking with dock workers, talking about nothing important. He had begun to think this day would never come. Some part of him, quietly, had hoped it never would. But now it had. He stood up from the table, all thoughts of lunch forgotten. Sound quiet stations, he said. No alarms, no lights. I don't want whoever is out there to know what we are until the last possible moment. Understood, Captain, Chen said. What about the colony? They'll want to know we can help. Send word to Administrator Reyes only. Tell her to keep the people calm, keep them in the shelters, and trust us. The less anyone knows right now, the better our chances. Marcus walked briskly toward the bridge, passing crew members who were already moving to their positions they had trained for many times in secret, deep in the ship's hidden compartments, but had never used against a real enemy. Panels that looked like storage lockers slid open to reveal weapon controls, walls that looked like plain metal folded back to show targeting systems. The Iron Harvest, and the 5 other ships of Atlas Trading, were about to become something New Haven's attackers would never expect. High above the green moon, the 12 alien ships continued their slow approach. Their commander, a being named Fleet Lord Threx of the Vashnari Dominion, watched the small world grow larger on his view screen with something close to satisfaction. Threx had led many campaigns like this one. Small, undefended human colonies were easy targets. Soft worlds with no real military presence, worth taking for their resources and their people, who made useful laborers once properly controlled. His scouts had studied New Haven for months before this attack. Their reports were clear. No warships, no orbital defenses worth mentioning, only a handful of old rifles and frightened farmers. It would be an easy conquest. Status of the colony's defense, Threx said to his second, a smaller Vashnari named Korik. Minimal, Fleet Lord. They have sounded some kind of alarm. Their people are moving underground. No weapons detected beyond small arms. And the trade vessels in their port? Korik checked his readings. 6 cargo ships, old design, unarmed according to all scans. They pose no threat. Threx allowed himself something like a smile, an expression that on his species looked more like a baring of teeth. Good. Begin the approach. Target their communication tower first, then their power station. We will land troops once resistance is broken, which should not take long. Yes, Fleet Lord. The alien fleet began to accelerate, closing the distance to New Haven. Weapon ports opened along their dark hulls. Threx watched the moon grow closer, already thinking about how quickly this conquest would be added to his long list of victories. He had no idea that 4 kilometers below him, in a small port beside a quiet town, 6 harmless cargo ships were quietly powering up weapons, more advanced than anything his fleet carried. Weapons built by a species that had learned, the hard way, never to look weak, even when pretending to be. The alarm continued to ring across New Haven. Families huddled together in the shelters, holding each other, listening to the sound of their world about to change forever. Above them, unseen in the dark of space, the true battle was only moments from beginning. Elena Reyes stood at the window of the watch station, looking up at the sky, waiting. She did not know exactly what Atlas trading really was. She only knew what the old file had told her, that help was coming, that the cargo ships were not what they seemed, and that New Haven was not as defenseless as everyone believed. She whispered a quiet prayer for her people, and watched the sky darken as the alien ships drew near. To be continued, in Part 2. The first alien shot hit New Haven's communication tower with a bright flash that lit up the whole valley. The tower, a tall metal structure that had stood at the edge of town for 30 years, broke in half and fell in a shower of sparks. Inside the shelters, the ground shook, dust fell from the ceiling. Children cried, and parents held them tighter, whispering that everything would be fine, even though nobody knew if that was true. Above the moon, Fleet Lord Threx watched the destruction with cold satisfaction. Communication tower destroyed, Korik reported from his station. Power station is next target. No return fire detected from the surface. As expected, Threx said. Continue the approach. Prepare landing craft. The 12 Vashnari ships spread out in a wide formation above New Haven, moving with the slow confidence of a fleet that believed it had nothing to fear. Their scanners still showed the same reading they had shown for weeks. 6 old cargo ships sitting quietly in the port, engines cold, weapons non-existent. Nothing to worry about. That reading was about to become very wrong. On the bridge of the Iron Harvest, Captain Marcus Webb stood behind Commander Sarah Chen, watching the alien fleet on the tactical display. His jaw was tight. He had watched the tower fall on the ship's external cameras, had heard the alarm still ringing through the town below, and every part of him wanted to act immediately, but years of training held him steady. Wait for my mark, he said, more to himself than to anyone else. Let them get closer. Let them get comfortable. They're targeting the power station now, Captain, Chen said. If that goes down, the colony loses water pumping, medical support, everything. Marcus watched the alien ships on the screen, calculating angles. His people had trained for this exact moment for 11 years, running drills in secret, testing their disguised weapon systems against simulated targets, always hoping they would never need to use any of it for real. Now the moment had come, and he needed to make it count. A first strike, done right, could cripple the enemy before they even understood what was happening. Done wrong, it could cost every life on New Haven. Chen, signal the other 5 ships. Tell them to power weapons but hold fire until my command. We only get one chance at a surprise like this. Sending now, Captain. Down in the port, the 5 sister ships of Atlas Trading, the Golden Plow, the Steady Current, the North Wind, the Quiet Harbor, and the Long Road, began their own transformations. Panels that had looked like cargo hatches for over a decade slid open along their hulls, revealing weapon barrels that had never once been fired outside of a simulation. Crew members who had spent years pretending to be simple deckhands and cargo loaders moved swiftly to battle stations, their hearts pounding, their training taking over where fear tried to creep in. Captain Diane Okafor of the Golden Plow gripped the arms of her chair and looked at her weapons officer. Ready? Ready, Captain. Just say the word. We wait for Webb's mark, she said. Same as always. Above them, the alien fleet closed in on the power station, weapon ports glowing with charge, ready to fire the shot that would plunge New Haven into darkness. Now, Chen, Marcus Webb said quietly. All ships, fire. What happened next took less than 4 seconds, but for everyone who witnessed it, it would feel like the longest moment of their lives. The 6 Atlas trading ships, sitting quietly in New Haven's small port, suddenly came alive with light. Weapon barrels that had been hidden inside false cargo hatches for 11 years opened fire all at once, sending bright bolts of energy screaming up through the atmosphere toward the alien fleet above. On Fleet Lord Threx's bridge, alarms began screaming a fraction of a second before the first shot struck. Fleet Lord, weapons fire from the surface. From the... Korik's voice cut off in shock. From the cargo ships. That is impossible, Threx snapped, but even as he said it, he watched 3 of his escort vessels take direct hits. One of them, a smaller scout ship on the edge of the formation, exploded in a burst of orange fire, debris scattering across the black of space. The other 2 staggered, their shields flaring bright as they absorbed blow after blow. Impossible or not, it is happening, Korik shouted. Fleet Lord, their weapons are far stronger than anything a cargo vessel should carry. We are taking heavy damage. Threx stared at his screen in disbelief. Everything his scouts had told him, everything his scans had shown, said those 6 ships in the port were nothing more than slow trade vessels. And yet they had just fired a coordinated volley that had destroyed one of his ships and badly damaged 2 more, all within the span of a few heartbeats. Return fire, Threx roared. Target the port, destroy those ships. The alien fleet, caught off guard, began to turn their weapons toward the small port below. But the Iron Harvest and its sister ships were already moving, engines that had once carried only grain and cloth now roaring with a power the aliens had never expected, lifting off from the port and scattering into different flight paths to avoid becoming easy targets. Evasive patterns now, Marcus Webb ordered, gripping the arms of his chair as the Iron Harvest shook from a near miss. Outside the viewport, the black sky was lit up with explosions and streaking weapon fire, a battle beginning that New Haven had never imagined it would see. Captain, the alien fleet is regrouping, Chen said, eyes fixed on her screen. They still outnumber us 2 to 1, even after that first strike. I know, Marcus said, but now they know we can hurt them. That changes everything. An enemy who thought you were weak and just found out you're not. That enemy hesitates, and hesitation is exactly what we need. In the shelters below, the sound of the battle rumbled through the ground like distant thunder, but it was different from before. Before, the ground had shaken from alien weapons hitting the colony. Now it shook from something else entirely, the sound of human weapons firing back. Elena Reyes stood near the shelter entrance, watching through a small window slit as streaks of light crossed the sky above New Haven. She saw one of the strange alien ships burst into fire and fall, breaking apart before it ever reached the ground. A cheer went up from some of the colonists near her, quiet at first, then louder. Are those our ships?" asked a young man standing beside her, his voice full of disbelief. "I don't know how," Elena said, watching the battle rage above. "But yes, I think they are." Corporal Petrov ran up to her, breathless. "Administrator, we're getting reports. The cargo ships, Atlas Trading, they just took out 3 enemy vessels in the first few seconds. Nobody can explain it. It's like they were built for this." Elena thought of the old file, the code she had sent, the words, "The fleet will respond." She had trusted a message left by people who came before her, without fully understanding what it meant. Now she watched the proof of that trust, playing out in fire and light above her home. "Keep everyone in the shelters," she said. "This isn't over yet." Above New Haven, Fleet Lord Threx tried to regain control of the battle. His fleet, though damaged, still had 9 ships remaining, against only 6 human vessels. By simple numbers, the Vashnari should still win this fight easily. But numbers were no longer the only thing that mattered. "Fleet Lord, the human ships are moving with strange coordination," Korik reported. "Their weapons fire is precise. This is not the behavior of untrained cargo crews." "Then who are they?" Threx demanded, watching another of his ships take a hit and spin out of formation, venting atmosphere into space. He did not yet know the answer. He did not know about the war humanity had fought decades earlier, the hard lessons learned about hiding true strength, the quiet doctrine that placed disguised warships on vulnerable colonies across human space. All he knew was that an easy conquest had suddenly become a real fight, and his fleet was bleeding ships faster than he had ever expected. "Pull back the damaged vessels," Threx ordered. "Concentrate fire on the lead enemy ship. Whoever commands them. If we destroy their leader, the rest may break." The alien fleet began to shift formation, several of the largest remaining ships turning their combined weapons toward one target, the Iron Harvest, Marcus Webb's ship, which had led the first strike and continued to coordinate the human defense. "Captain, they've locked onto us," Chen said sharply. "Multiple targeting signatures, all converging on our position." Marcus Webb watched the display, seeing the danger clearly. If the Iron Harvest went down, the coordination of the human fleet might fall apart at exactly the wrong moment. "Evasive maneuvers, hard burn," he ordered. "Chen, signal the golden plow and the steady current. Tell them to draw fire. Spread out the targeting. We can't let them focus everything on one ship." "Sending now, Captain." The Iron Harvest twisted through space, engines burning hot as it dodged the first wave of alien fire. Around it, the other human ships moved to support, drawing attention, spreading the enemy's focus, buying time. It was working, but barely. The battle above New Haven had become a desperate, close fight, with neither side able to claim a clear advantage. And it was far from over. To be continued, in Part 3. The battle above New Haven had turned into something neither side had planned for. Fleet Lord Threx had expected an easy conquest. Captain Marcus Webb had expected, at best, to buy the colony a few extra hours before real help arrived. Neither of them had expected a real fight, but that was exactly what they were now in. The Iron Harvest shook hard as an enemy blast grazed its shields. Sparks flew from a console near the back of the bridge, and one of the crew members rushed to put out a small fire with an extinguisher. "Shields at 60%, Chen called out. "We can't keep taking hits like that forever, Captain." "I know," Marcus said, gripping the arms of his chair. "Status on the enemy fleet?" "Down to 8 ships from the original 12, but they're regrouping. Looks like they're trying to surround us." Marcus studied the tactical display, his mind working through years of training. The Vashnari fleet, though damaged, still had the numbers advantage, and now they were beginning to fight smarter, spreading out instead of bunching together, making it harder for the human ships to land decisive hits. "They're learning," Marcus muttered. "Fast learners, that's not good for us." He thought back, as he often did in tense moments, to the years after the last Great War, the war that had taught humanity its hardest lesson. Back then, the human fleet had been proud, strong and confident, flying warships that looked exactly like what they were, powerful, dangerous, ready for battle. Enemies had seen those ships coming from far away and planned around them. Enemies had targeted the strongest-looking vessels first, concentrated their firepower, and picked apart the human fleet piece by piece, because everyone always knew exactly what they were facing. It had cost humanity dearly. Entire fleets destroyed, colonies lost, millions of lives spent learning a bitter truth. In war, being seen as strong could be just as dangerous as being weak, because it made you a priority target from the very first moment. After that war ended, a new doctrine was born, quietly, without much fanfare. Humanity would still build warships, powerful ones, but many of them would not look like warships at all. They would be disguised as cargo vessels, science ships, passenger liners, ordinary things that no enemy would think twice about, spread out across every vulnerable colony on the frontier, waiting, hidden, ready to reveal their true nature, only when it mattered most. Marcus had volunteered for this program right out of the academy, young and eager to serve in whatever way was needed. He had spent 11 years playing the part of a boring cargo captain, memorizing trade routes, learning to complain about fuel prices, and delivery schedules like any other merchant. It had not been an easy life, pretending to be someone he was not for over a decade, but he had always known that one day, it might matter. Today was that day. "Captain," Chen said, breaking his thoughts, "the north wind is taking heavy fire." "Captain Reyes." "No, wait. That's Captain Alvarez on the north wind. He's requesting support." "Reroute the quiet harbor to assist," Marcus ordered. "And get me a channel to all ships. It's time to use the trap." Weeks before this day, Marcus Webb and his fellow disguised captains had gathered in secret, discussing plans for a scenario they hoped would never come, but had to prepare for regardless. One of those plans involved the asteroid field that sat just beyond New Haven's outer orbit, a wide, scattered belt of rock and ice left over from the system's formation, mostly ignored by traders and largely unmapped by anyone outside the colony. The plan was simple in idea, though difficult in execution. Lure the enemy fleet toward the asteroid field, where the smaller, more agile human ships could use the rocks for cover, while larger enemy vessels would struggle to maneuver as easily. It would turn the enemy's superior numbers into a weakness rather than a strength. "All ships, this is Webb," Marcus said into the comm. "Begin drawing the enemy toward Sector 7, the asteroid field. Keep your formations loose. Don't let them predict our movements." One by one, the human captains acknowledged the order. Diane Okafor, on the Golden Plow, peeled her ship away from the main fight, weaving through space with practiced skill, drawing the attention of two alien vessels that gave chase. Captain Alvarez, on the damaged Northwind, limped toward the asteroid field as well, using the last of his ship's speed to stay ahead of pursuing enemy fire. Above the chaos, Fleet Lord Threx watched his tactical display with growing frustration. "They are retreating toward the debris field," Korik reported. "Should we pursue?" Threx considered the situation. His fleet still had the advantage in numbers, even after losing 4 ships. If the humans were retreating, it might mean they were weakening, running out of options. A part of him wanted to be cautious, given how badly his first assumptions about this colony had already failed him. But pride, and the sting of unexpected losses, pushed him toward aggression. "Pursue," he ordered. "Do not let them regroup. Finish this quickly, before more of our ships are lost." The alien fleet surged forward, chasing the human ships into the scattered field of rock and ice that orbited beyond New Haven. It was exactly what Marcus Webb had hoped they would do. Inside the asteroid field, the battle changed shape entirely. Large chunks of rock, some as big as houses, others as big as small mountains, drifted slowly through the dark, providing cover and obstacles in equal measure. The human ships, smaller and more nimble than their alien counterparts, wove between the rocks with practiced skill, using them as shields against incoming fire. The Vashnari ships, larger and less flexible, found themselves struggling. One of the bigger alien cruisers, chasing too closely after the Golden Plow, failed to avoid a large asteroid in time and clipped its hull against solid rock, sending the ship spinning out of control, venting atmosphere, and losing power to half its systems. "Got one," Diane Okafor said with grim satisfaction, watching the crippled alien cruiser drift helplessly through the debris field on her screen. Elsewhere in the field, Captain Alvarez on the Northwind used the cover of a large asteroid to line up a clean shot on one of his pursuers, striking its engine section and leaving it dead in space, unable to maneuver further. But the battle was far from one-sided. The alien fleet, though hampered by the terrain, still had powerful weapons, and their return fire tore through rock and metal alike. The steady current took a direct hit to its rear section, losing engine power and beginning to drift, its crew scrambling to make emergency repairs, while alien fire continued to search for them among the asteroids. "Steady current is hit bad, Captain," Chen reported to Marcus, worry clear in her voice. "They're requesting immediate assistance." Marcus gritted his teeth, watching the tactical display, trying to see the whole battle at once, trying to find a way to help every ship that needed it, without spreading his own forces too thin. This was the hardest part of command, knowing that in any battle, some choices meant leaving someone in danger for the greater good, and hoping desperately that the cost would not be too high. "Long Road, you're closest to the steady current," he said into the comm. "Get them covering fire, help them get clear." "On it, Captain," came the reply from the Long Road's captain, a quiet man named Hendricks who rarely spoke more than necessary, but always followed through on what he said. The Long Road peeled off toward the struggling steady current, weapons blazing as it moved to intercept the alien ships closing in on the wounded vessel. Above it all, Fleet Lord Threx watched his fleet's losses continue to mount within the confusing terrain of the asteroid field, and for the first time since the battle began, real doubt crept into his mind. "Fleet Lord," Korik said carefully, "we have lost 6 ships total now. We began with 12. The humans still have all 6 of their vessels, though several are damaged. Threx's mind raced. 6 ships lost to what he had believed, only hours ago, was an undefended, harmless colony. It was almost impossible to comprehend. Every report, every scan, every piece of intelligence his forces had gathered, pointed to New Haven being an easy target. And yet here they were, bleeding ships, in an asteroid field, against an enemy that fought with skill and coordination, far beyond what simple traders should possess. "What are your orders, Fleet Lord?" Korik asked. Threx stared at the tactical display for a long moment, pride warring with caution in his mind. He thought of his superiors back home, who would ask hard questions if he retreated from a supposedly weak colony with heavy losses. He thought of the 6 remaining ships he still commanded, more than enough, by simple numbers, to still win this fight if he pressed the advantage correctly. "We continue," he said finally. "Pull back from the asteroid field. Regroup in open space. We will draw them out where our numbers matter more than this cursed terrain." The alien fleet began to withdraw from the debris field, moving back toward open space, where their remaining ships could fight without the danger of collision or ambush from hidden rocks. Threx knew this battle was far from decided. He still believed, deep down, that his fleet could win. He had one advantage the humans did not know about yet. Reinforcements were already on their way, called for the moment his scouts had first reported unusual resistance from the colony below. Down on New Haven, in the shelters beneath the shaking ground, Elena Reyes listened to updates from Corporal Petrov with a growing sense of both hope and fear. The colony's hidden defenders had done more than anyone believed possible. But the battle above was clearly not over, and nobody could say for certain how it would end. To be continued in Part 4. Far beyond New Haven, past the edge of the system where the stars grew thin and cold, a new group of ships tore through space toward the battle. 8 more Vashnari vessels, called in by Fleet Lord Threx the moment his scouts had reported unexpected resistance, raced to reinforce the fight above the colony. They would arrive within the hour. On the bridge of the Iron Harvest, Marcus Webb received the news from a distant sensor buoy his fleet had quietly placed months ago, far out in the system, as part of an early warning network almost nobody knew existed. "Captain, we have a problem," Chen said, her voice tight. "Long-range sensors just picked up a new group of contacts. 8 ships, moving fast, still a good distance out, but closing. Vashnari signatures, same as the fleet already here." Marcus felt his stomach tighten. 6 human ships, some already damaged, had barely managed to fight the first 12 alien vessels to a standstill, destroying 6 of them in the process. Now 8 more were coming, and his people were tired, their ships worn down from hours of combat. "How long until they arrive?" he asked. 50 minutes, maybe less." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment, thinking hard. 50 minutes was not much time. He needed a plan, and he needed it fast. "Get me a channel to Administrator Reyes," he said. "It's time she knew who we really are, and time we figured out what other help New Haven might have." Down in the shelter, Elena Reyes took the call in a small side room, away from the crowd of frightened colonists still huddled in the main area. The voice on the other end was calm, steady, but she could hear the weight of hours of battle behind it. "Administrator Reyes, this is Captain Marcus Webb, of the Iron Harvest. I imagine you have some questions." "A few," Elena said, managing a tired smile despite everything. "Starting with who you really are." "Fair enough. My ship, and the other 5 in port, are part of a hidden defense program, set up after the last great war humanity fought. We're built to look like ordinary cargo vessels, but we carry real weapons and real training, kept secret until a colony like yours needs us. I'm sorry we couldn't tell you sooner. The whole point was that nobody could know, not even the people we were protecting, or the secret wouldn't hold." Elena took a moment to absorb this. 11 years, she thought. 11 years these people had lived among her colonists, pretending, waiting, all so that this exact moment could go differently than it otherwise would have. "I understand," she said finally. "What do you need from us now?" "More enemy ships are coming. 8 of them, less than an hour out. My fleet is already worn down from the first fight. I need to know if New Haven has anything else that could help, any old equipment, any defense systems, anything at all, even things that seem useless." Elena thought quickly. New Haven was a young colony, without much military history, but it had not been built from nothing. "We have an old planetary defense cannon," she said slowly, remembering. "Left over from before the colony charter was even signed, back when this world was first surveyed. It's never been used. I don't even know if it still works. It's in a bunker outside town, sealed up for decades." "Can you get it running?" "I don't know. I can try. I have engineers in the shelters who might know how." "Do it," Marcus said. "Anything that can add even a little firepower might make the difference in the fight to come." Elena wasted no time. She gathered a small team, 2 colony engineers, a mechanic, and a handful of volunteers, and led them out of the shelter toward the old bunker at the edge of town. Dodging debris from the ongoing battle overhead, the sky lit with flashes of distant weapon fire, even as the main alien fleet had pulled back to regroup in open space. The bunker door was rusted, sealed shut for decades, but with some effort and an old override code found in colony records, it finally creaked open. Inside, covered in dust, sat a massive old defense cannon, built during the earliest days of New Haven's founding, back when colonists had feared attacks from wild predators and unknown dangers on this new world, long before anyone imagined an alien invasion. "Can we get this thing running?" Elena asked the lead engineer, a woman named Priya Sharma, who was already running her hands over the ancient controls. "Maybe," Priya said, frowning at the old systems. "It's going to take time. This thing hasn't been powered on in 40 years. "How much time?" Priya looked up, her expression grim. "I don't know, Administrator. I'll do everything I can, but I can't promise it'll be ready when you need it." "Do your best," Elena said. "That's all any of us can do right now." Above New Haven, the battle resumed, as Threx's remaining 6 ships regrouped in open space, waiting for their reinforcements to arrive. Marcus Webb used the brief lull to pull his own fleet back toward the colony, giving his crews a chance to make emergency repairs and catch their breath before the next wave hit. "Damage report," he called out. "Steady current is still limping, but her crew patched the worst of it," Chen reported. "Northwind lost most of her weapons in the asteroid field, down to minimal firepower. The rest of us took hits, but we're still combat capable." Marcus nodded grimly. Not the strongest position to be in when 8 fresh enemy ships were less than an hour away. He gathered his captains on a shared comm channel, laying out what he knew. "Reinforcements are coming for the enemy," he told them. 8 more ships, less than an hour out. "We need every advantage we can get. The colony is trying to bring an old defense cannon online, but there's no guarantee it'll be ready in time. I want ideas, and I want them fast." There was a pause on the channel before Diane Okafor spoke up. "What if we don't wait for them to reach us? What if we hit the reinforcements before they even arrive, while they're still spread out and not expecting resistance this far out?" "Risky," Hendricks said quietly. "We'd be splitting our forces even further, leaving the colony less protected if Threx's remaining ships decide to press an attack while we're gone." "It's risky either way," Marcus said, thinking it through. "But if those 8 ships arrive fresh and ready, combined with what's left of Threx's fleet, we won't be able to hold them off. Cannon or no cannon. Better to hit them while they're still separated, if we can manage it." After a tense discussion, the captains agreed on a plan. 3 ships, the Iron Harvest, the Golden Plow, and the Quiet Harbor, would move out to intercept the incoming reinforcements before they could combine forces with Threx's fleet. The remaining 3 ships, though damaged, would stay behind to protect New Haven from any renewed attack, buying time for the old defense cannon to hopefully come online. "It's not a perfect plan," Marcus admitted to his crew as the Iron Harvest powered up for the coming fight. "But it's the best chance we have." Back in Threx's fleet, the alien commander watched his reinforcements approaching on his tactical display, relief mixing with continued frustration over the losses his fleet had already suffered. "Reinforcements arrive in 30 minutes, Korik reported. "Once they combine with our remaining forces, we will outnumber the enemy more than 2 to 1. "Good," Threx said. "This battle has cost us more than it should have. Once the reinforcements arrive, we finish this quickly, and without further embarrassment." But even as he spoke, new alerts began flashing on his display. "Fleet Lord, 3 enemy vessels are moving away from the colony, on an intercept course with our incoming reinforcements." Threx's eyes narrowed. "They mean to strike before the reinforcements arrive." Clever, but foolish. It splits their already weakened forces. He considered his options briefly. Take the remaining ships and press the attack on the colony now, while their defense is thin. If we can take New Haven before the reinforcements even arrive, this entire battle becomes irrelevant. The remaining 3 Vashnari ships under Threx's direct command surged forward, breaking away from their defensive position and driving hard toward New Haven, where only 3 damaged human ships stood between them and the colony below. On the ground, Priya Sharma worked frantically inside the old bunker, sweat dripping down her face as she coaxed decades-old systems back to life, wire by wire, circuit by circuit. "Come on," she muttered under her breath, watching a row of ancient status lights flicker weakly. "Come on, you old thing, work for me." Above, Captain Hendricks on the long road, along with the damaged Steady Current and Northwind, formed up to meet Threx's advancing ships, their weapons already worn down from hours of earlier combat. "They're coming in fast," Hendricks reported over the comm to Marcus Webb, now far out in open space, closing in on the incoming alien reinforcements. 3 ships, direct approach on the colony. We'll hold as long as we can, Captain." "Understood," Marcus replied, his voice tense as his own ship closed the distance toward the reinforcement fleet. "Hold the line. We'll finish this out here as fast as we can and get back to you." 2 battles now raged at once, one far out in the dark of space, where Marcus Webb and 2 of his sister ships raced to strike the alien reinforcements before they could combine forces, and one much closer to home, where 3 worn, damaged human ships stood between Threx's remaining vessels and the quiet colony of New Haven, its people still huddled in shelters, praying for the fight to end before it reached their doorstep. Below it all, Priya Sharma finally found the connection she had been searching for, and with a groan of ancient machinery, waking after 40 years of silence, the old defense cannon began to hum with power, for the first time in decades. To be continued in Part 5. The old defense cannon groaned to life inside its bunker, decades of dust shaking loose from its barrel, as power surged through wires that had not carried a current in 40 years. Priya Sharma wiped sweat from her forehead and stared at the control panel in front of her, hardly believing it had actually worked. "Administrator, we have power," she called out. "Targeting system is coming online now. It's old, it's slow, but it's working." Elena Reyes, standing behind her, felt a small flicker of hope. "Can you aim it at the ships attacking the colony?" "I think so." "Give me a minute to lock on." Above them, Threx's 3 remaining ships bore down on New Haven, closing in on the 3 damaged human vessels standing in their way. Captain Hendricks on the long road gritted his teeth as his ship shuddered from another hit, sparks flying from a damaged console beside him. "Shields at 30%, his weapons officer called out. "We can't take much more of this." "Keep firing," Hendricks said. "We hold as long as we can." The Steady Current, still limping from earlier damage, took a direct hit to its main hull, sending the whole ship spinning as internal alarms blared. "We're losing power to the engines," its captain shouted over the comm. "Someone, help." The Northwind, with barely any weapons left after the asteroid field battle, moved to cover its wounded sister ship, drawing enemy fire onto itself instead, buying precious seconds for the crippled vessel to attempt emergency repairs. It was in this desperate moment that the old planetary defense cannon finally locked onto its first target. A massive beam of energy, far more powerful than anything the small colony's people had expected, tore up from the surface of New Haven and struck one of Threx's 3 remaining ships directly in its main power core. The alien vessel lit up from the inside, its hull cracking apart in a blinding flash before going dark entirely, drifting lifeless through space. "What was that?" Threx demanded, staring at his display in shock. "Report. What just happened?" "Unknown weapon fire from the planet's surface, Fleet Lord," Korik said, his voice filled with disbelief. "We have lost the Vicar, completely destroyed in a single hit." Threx felt something close to fear creep into his mind, for the first time since this campaign began. First the disguised cargo ships, now a weapon firing from the ground itself, a weapon his scans had never even detected. Everything about this supposedly weak, undefended colony had turned out to be a lie. "Fleet Lord, orders?" Korik pressed. Before Threx could answer, the old cannon fired again, this time striking a glancing blow against his own flagship, shaking the entire vessel and sending crew members stumbling from their stations. Far out in open space, Marcus Webb's small strike force closed in on the 8 incoming Vashnari reinforcements, catching them still spread out in loose formation, not yet expecting any resistance this far from New Haven. Now, Marcus ordered, hit them before they can form up. The Iron Harvest, the Golden Plow, and the Quiet Harbor struck with everything they had, weapons blazing as they tore through the scattered enemy formation. 2 alien ships went down in the first exchange, caught completely off guard by the sudden coordinated assault. They're breaking formation, trying to regroup, Chen called out from her station. Don't let them, Marcus said. Keep the pressure on. Diane, Quiet Harbor, split their attention. Don't give them a moment to think. The battle in open space became a chaotic, close-range fight, human ships weaving between the larger, more numerous alien vessels, using speed and coordination to offset the difference in numbers. It was not an easy fight. The Golden Plow took heavy damage, losing 2 of its main weapon systems, but Diane Okafor kept her ship in the fight, drawing enemy fire away from her sister vessels whenever she could. Slowly, painfully, the tide began to turn. One by one, the alien reinforcements fell, their formation broken, their numbers dwindling under the relentless, coordinated assault of the 3 human ships. 4 left, Chen reported after nearly 20 minutes of brutal fighting. They're pulling back, trying to retreat. Marcus watched the remaining alien ships break off and flee back toward the edge of the system, no longer willing to press an attack that had already cost them so dearly. He allowed himself a brief moment of relief before turning his attention back to New Haven. Status of the colony? He asked urgently. Picking up transmissions now, Captain, Chen said, working her console quickly. Something's happening back there. Some kind of weapon fire from the surface. Threx's remaining ships are taking heavy damage. Marcus felt a surge of hope. All ships. Back to New Haven. Full speed. Let's finish this. Above the colony, Threx watched his fleet crumble around him. Only his flagship remained now, badly damaged, drifting under the continued fire of the old planetary cannon below, and the 3 worn but determined human ships still fighting to protect their home. Fleet Lord, we cannot continue, Korik said, his voice urgent. Shields are failing. If we take another hit like the last one, we will not survive it. Threx stared at the wreckage of his once proud fleet scattered across the space above New Haven. 12 ships had come to conquer this world, believing it weak and undefended. Now only his single, crippled flagship remained, facing an enemy that had proven far stronger and far more prepared than anyone had believed possible. Pride told him to keep fighting. Sense told him something very different. Signal a retreat, he said finally, the words heavy in his mouth. We are leaving this system. Yes, Fleet Lord, Korik said, unable to hide his relief. Threx's remaining ship turned away from New Haven, engines burning as it fled toward the edge of the system and beyond, carrying with it the news of a costly defeat and a hard lesson about underestimating a colony that looked far weaker than it truly was. Down in the shelters, Elena Reyes listened as Corporal Petrov relayed the news, his voice shaking with disbelief and relief all at once. Administrator, they're retreating. All of them. The battle is over. A cheer rose up through the shelter, spreading from room to room, as the news reached every frightened colonist hiding underground. People hugged each other, some crying with relief, others laughing in disbelief that their quiet little colony had somehow survived an alien invasion. Elena allowed herself a small, tired smile, though the weight of everything that had happened still sat heavy on her shoulders. She thought of the old file she had opened hours earlier, the trust it had asked her to place in strangers she barely knew, and how that trust had ultimately saved her home. In the days that followed, New Haven slowly began to recover. The communication tower was rebuilt. The wounded were treated. The old defense cannon, once a forgotten relic, was cleaned, repaired properly, and given a place of honor at the edge of town, a reminder of the day it had helped save the colony. Marcus Webb and his crew remained in New Haven for several weeks, helping with repairs, and finally, for the first time in 11 years, speaking openly with the colonists about who they really were. Most people took the news with surprise, followed quickly by gratitude. A few grumbled about the years of secrecy, but even they understood, in the end, why it had been necessary. Elena Reyes met with Marcus one evening, sitting together outside the rebuilt watch station, looking up at a clear, quiet sky, the same sky that had been filled with fire and battle only days before. "What happens now?" she asked. "Will you stay?" "For a while," Marcus said. "New Haven will need protection going forward, especially now that word of what happened here will spread. Other colonies, other enemies, they'll all hear about this. Some will think twice before trying anything like this again. Others might see it as a challenge. And the disguise? Will Atlas Trading keep pretending to be just a cargo company?" Marcus smiled faintly. "For now, yes. It's still useful, even after today. Better the next enemy scout thinks they're facing weak, unarmed trade ships, right up until they don't." Elena nodded slowly, understanding the strange, quiet strength behind that idea. Strength hidden, not to deceive the people it protected, but to protect them all the more effectively when the moment came. Word of the battle at New Haven spread slowly across human space in the months that followed, carried by traders and travelers who told the story again and again, each time growing slightly in the telling. Colonies that had once felt vulnerable and exposed took quiet comfort in knowing that even the most ordinary-looking cargo ship might carry hidden strength. Enemies who heard the story learned caution, understanding that humanity's outer colonies were not always as weak as they appeared. For the people of New Haven, life slowly returned to something like normal. Farmers returned to their fields. Children returned to their games in the streets. But nobody who had lived through that day ever looked at the quiet cargo ships in the port quite the same way again. Elena Reyes kept the old data file that had started it all, storing it safely, ready to be passed on one day to whoever became the next administrator of New Haven, along with a lesson she had learned firsthand. Sometimes the greatest strength is the strength nobody sees coming, until the moment it's needed most. The end.